So, okay, I got it. We're good. We can move on. I got it.
Round 3. I'm trying to remember.
Scraps.
Round 3, we had this whole
We had a really short turnaround time.
short turnaround time for our division.
Yeah.
Everyone was stressing that week.
I think we only had 5 or 4 days turnaround time, so our division was super stressed out. I mean, everyone was stressed out. But we actually were between pieces. We had another piece by Flume, and then we had the one that we ended up doing. But it was a concern because the posse had used a number with using ropes, and then Royal Flux used a number with not an elastic band, but a band in the first, like harnesses and band in the first round. So,
And mind you, we planned all of this out months in advance.
so we had the band piece pretty ready for the most part. We always had like a foundation laid for every piece, and we would go back in when the round came up and like fix it up. But yeah, and Napoleon kind of.
Well, everyone was like, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. And then just like a little second thought from Napoleon, like, I don't know. A little nervous. Just like our whole world just like crumbled, and we began to just doubt ourselves.
Okay, we should do the Flume one then. We could do this one, and we showed that to them. We had like all the choreography done and stuff like that, and they're like, "Yeah, this is taut. Like it was more hard hitting and da da da." And like their excitement on that end versus like actually it was kind of split between production. It was like Nappy Tabs really liked the Flume one, and I think because it was more dance oriented, and the other people really liked the band one because it was more story and stuff like that. So we were like, oh man.
Back and forth.
Yeah, for a while. But this piece was actually, we ended up moving forward with the band piece because Flume never got cleared. So we're like, all right, we're back to the original plan, which is fine, which is great. It was meant to be. But actually, this one from a choreography process was the most difficult because we weren't satisfied with the foundation that we laid with the piece was fine, but we weren't happy with like where the choreography stood at that point, and we wanted to like raise the bar a lot. Like in our first piece, we were really athletic, or not super athletic, but just more fast choreography, bigger movement. And then the next piece, we were more subtle and more partner and story oriented. So we wanted to bring those two elements together in this piece. And so like we really wanted to bring that, but it was so hard. Like we did midnight to 6 a.m. rehearsals at ML, like 3 nights. That in that 4-day span, it was probably the toughest week for us.
We were trying so many different things.
So many different lifts, so many different
tried physical
the band
things.
stuff.
Yeah, and then things weren't working. We were super stressed out.
And we were also working on our cut with District because he was adding in drums, like that intro thing, and so we were choreographing that. And so there was a lot of moving parts. But I think the most important thing with this whole piece that we're super glad we were able to move forward with was just the whole backstory and the purpose and meaning of the piece, which was, again, kind of like round 2. This is beyond just us in a competition. This is more important for us to share on a human level because someone out there is going through the same things that you went through.
Yeah, I think also just like, I mean, for us, I think about this whole journey, there was a lot of spiritual stuff for us that was going on, and that we were always praying a lot every day together, oftentimes like either in our hotel room or in our car before we would even go in, and it was just funny because I feel like that this particular message is of course incredibly personal and incredibly deep and like a really big thing to share, but and we were so sure about that, and for some reason once it got there, like all these things started happening that made us doubt that, and feel like it wasn't enough or it wasn't the right decision, but in the end, like I really like believe that God wanted us to do that in that moment and specifically share that story, and that even though it was kind of a windy path, once it got there, it was like, we got to the day and it was like, yes, like this is what we're supposed to do. And I had a moment like before we went down the tunnel of just like this overwhelming sense that we were supposed to do that.
Yeah, I think also the way this round was situated, it was different because they had all of us stand facing this jumbotron, and we all had to watch each other, which was so weird because like we all want to practice. We don't want to be watching. Yeah, warm up. Like we all literally stand there, can't crouch, can't stretch, can't move, got to be in the same spots. So that was tough, and we would only have those brief breaks of when they're taking down or setting up people's performances to practice. And I remember we had one small window to go at it.
Yeah.
While everyone was, I think it was Fiction's piece was being set up. And we're like, babe, let's just go for it right now. Like, there's people everywhere, and I think all the teams were like watching and sitting down, and we're like, let's just go for it.
And we were stressed out. It's like not like completely like settled yet. It's like we're still thinking about stuff instead of just being able to.
We had changes all the way up to the final performance. Like our tech, our camera block that day, show run through performance that day was different from our actual performance in like small ways. So we were making changes all the way through. So we had to get that in our system one time. But yeah, like we like went super full out like in front of everybody backstage. Yeah. Well, and it was kind of cool because like we just I think it was like Fiction got his score. And it was lower than we all thought, but it was also like, let's seize the opportunity. You know what I mean? It was like blood in the water, we're sharks, like leave nothing behind. And like, it was just focus in. And I just remember that energy that we had in that moment, especially because the piece was like very much like that.
Yeah, and we were making noises and all this stuff.
Screaming and like.
And people were all over the place.
Yeah. Speaking of that scream.
Oh yeah. That was not my scream.
That is not Mari's scream.
I can't go that high pitched. Keone can sometimes.
Once every 2 months.
He can, but just a little.
It's a good scream.
It's a very stock edit scream.
Scream
like
is good.
The scream they put in like Ludacris's song.
Move. Ah! Get out the way. Get out the way. Move. Ah! But
that was it was just a roller coaster week in so many ways, but it ended up exactly the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
You guys can read definitely more about that too on your guys' personal website. Right?
Yeah.
The whole spiel on it.
Yeah, I wrote a blog about going really in depth with there's so many years and years of stuff behind that 90 seconds. So I'm interested.
Right. I mean, we had actually done the piece a year before for Arena.
Yeah.
And again, it was like we had this message that was important to us that we wanted to bring onto the show. It was always like, what story do we want to bring to the show that is going to be impactful to people? And so that was a partial decision on why we wanted to do it.
And that version was like fresh, like real, like fresh healing from this really tough time that we had.
Yeah, and like, and I think it was said in the package, but like up until that point, we had been like portrayed as this really lighthearted couple that everything's perfect kind of thing, but like that we like totally wanted to scrap that, stigma and not allow people to believe that like that's how it has to be, because then that idea kind of ruins, I think, relationships.
Yeah, I feel like people project that onto us often, and it's not fair, not to us, but it's not fair to the expectations that you can put on a relationship, like at all in general, or on other people that you might be in a relationship with, like, because that's not a reality.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our round 3, and it was super cool, like Missy being there as a guest judge.
Oh yeah.
To have another like true dance perspective. Like straight. I know J-Lo and Neo have dance experience, but like Derek and Misty really have, like, they're known for dancing, right? And currently, yeah.
Dance experience.
So that was super cool to have that opportunity to perform from a different person too, and a new energy, because it was like, is she coming on with like does she know what everyone's been doing, you know, or is she coming on like seeing everyone for the first time? You know, how is this going to be scored? Like, it was an anxious feeling, but she was great.
Remember, cause like we would always cheer for each other, like right before we stepped on.
Right.
And I remember, I don't know, I'm like emotional and shit, but I remember, like that's just who I am as a person, I guess. But I remember being like, let's go, guys, and just kind of getting goosebumps and feeling like emotional, seeing you guys like what I had perceived as like so much weight, but a confident like weight, I guess, if you would, like just the way you guys were standing there like hand in hand. I super remember that moment and just being like, whoa, like just feeling like, whoa, they're about to do something, you know what I mean? So like just hearing that end of the story and just remembering that like makes complete sense. Like, makes complete sense for sure. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that. Like the support from everyone was overwhelming too. In that moment, it was like we're getting ready to do this thing. We had this opportunity. The story's emotional, and then like everyone backstage was like, "Let's go," because it was mostly community at that point that was left, and everyone had gotten closer too in the competition. Everyone was getting supportive of each other. But yeah, I do remember that moment of like, I hear this, but I you know, focusing on it. But later when it was all done, I was like, dang, that support was like, man, it was very
Felt it.
yeah, very much appreciated. Yeah, very much lifted us for sure.
Yeah. Felt home. You guys felt homed in, like ready to go. Yeah. I remember we talked about it too, like, they're about to be boxers. Just feel, you know what I mean? Like just the like, like exactly what you're saying, like the acknowledgement of like a fist in the air, but like no break in focus.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's just like, ooh, it's about to go down. Like, it's cool. And I think it was just high emotional moments for everybody at that point. You know what I mean? Like no one knew what was gonna happen. Like, crazy.
Great. How about y'all? Round 3.
Yeah, I just remember lots of sleepy Kinjaz in the dressing
Well,
room at every moment
it was
possible.
actually at this point. It was like we had been sharing that one room, and so we would be constantly bouncing. Like, dude, what are you guys going through right now? And I think,
or we would come back and you guys would be literally like in the closets, like spread out all over the floor, just like trying to get like 10 minutes of sleep.
it was like walking across a river with like little rocks, you know, like trying to get your bag. It was like, I just need to get my stuff. I don't want to wake anybody up. You know, people are just sleeping in the randomest corners, you know, and
That was a hard week for us too, because
yeah.
that's when it really started to hit the wire, and we like didn't know exactly what we were getting into. So sleep was so just like pockets of where we could, bodies everywhere.
Right. I mean, I remember, I think production had asked us to come ready with 2 pieces, right? Was that for you guys too? Like for the competition?
No, not for the third one.
Not for, no, sorry. In the competition in general, to come ready with your first 2 pieces, right?
Yeah.
So this was the first time that you started seeing like people didn't have things. So like the stress around everyone was like way more heightened. So you could feel that, and everyone was way more tired. And, so it was like, this was the point of the competition. Like, all right, now we're really starting to see who's gonna stick around. Yeah.
And at this point too, you just had way less time to actually practice because there's so many things that go on at the same time during a TV show like this. With tapings, like you've got to be interviewed in order to create packages that tell stories that wrap around different things. You've got to shoot B-roll and stuff like that to just, you know, like there's just a lot of extra stuff going on. You got wardrobe meetings to make sure everything's cool. You got to talk to music producers. You've got to, you know, do rehearsals with like supervising choreographers like Nappy Tabs or Tessie Chavez and stuff like that. Or the judges. The mentorship stuff was really about like, you know, getting in there, showing what we have, and sometimes you don't really have anything. So that's why practicing happened from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then call times like 6:30. You know, so sleeping in the room was everything. We would be like, oh, yo, I just got like 50% more sleep after a 15-minute nap, you know? It's crazy.
And just less contestants too. Just less of everybody. So just like you're saying, just quicker turnaround time. Like get it done, and then you gotta go again.
You know, I think it's super, in a really cool way. I didn't actually put so much of this together until now, but like ironic that like both of us for our 3rd round chose to take a stance, right, on whether it's a social commentary to something that you know that people are probably experiencing out there at the same time. And in a similar fashion, how symbolic it was to use like red props and like throw them away at the end, or like to have like your white vans or our white chairs. Yeah, it's a really, really cool little parallel there in terms of what we chose to do for that round. And I think one of the reasons why we chose to start going that route as well was we also knew that, like, I mean, it's getting close, right? People are getting knocked out of the competition. We only have so many opportunities left to do something with this stage, right? And it's not just like how dope can we perform to move on to the next round. It's kind of like, what are we trying to say with our artistry? So, you know, to take on, I guess, to pick up the microphone and choose to try and speak about something that has impacted all of us was definitely huge, just as much as choreographing the routine and rehearsing at night, you know what I'm saying, like was. So yeah, I guess going into the creative process for us, round 3, No Limit, was a bitch, to be honest. It was so hard, dude. That was probably one of our most stressful, the last 2 rounds were the most stressful weeks of our lives. But so we wanted to just use this opportunity to just say something that, I mean, it's not exactly at the forefront of all of our hearts or anything, but it was something that all of us have always experienced, especially being in the dance game, you know what I mean, professionally. There's definitely, you know, whether people want to admit or deny it, you know, there's an interesting stereotype and perspective about especially Asian American men or Asian men in general as a result of the media, right? Every single time we see Asian representation, it's at best, you know, a supporting character in some sort of role, or a very standard kind of depiction, right? Where every stereotype that you can think of for an Asian person, whether it be like bad drivers, great with numbers, fobby accents, Chinese food in to-go boxes, even though fortune cookies I think were developed in America, by the way. Martial arts, strict parents. I mean, a lot of things, of course, these do stem from like a cultural place, but at the same time, when viewed in like that kind of perspective, can similarly kind of create like weird expectations, right, on who somebody is based off of like their ethnicity and nationality, and not necessarily on their character or personality. So especially for us, like, we're Asian Americans, that's already a whole new bubble. Like we're like, you know, second generation. Our parents, a lot of our parents like weren't born in America, so we came up or were raised in a really, I would like to say, unique time frame and generation, bringing upon unique experiences too, and choosing to go out there and represent Asian men in a way that was hopefully going to challenge a lot of those stereotypes was a really, really important thing for us. But not just in the abstract presentation, but also being able to talk about it. Like when we went into our mentorship session with Neo, one of the most honestly like impactful things that happened during that mentorship session wasn't shared. It wasn't just him watching us dance and like, you know, thinking about different ways that he can give us comments or suggestions. It was actually afterwards when we had told him the meaning of the piece, and I remember asking him if he felt certain difficulties as an African American man going through the entertainment industry and his rise. And he was even taken aback by that too, and was just like genuinely like dug deep to think about how he wanted to respond based off of, honestly, I believe he knew who he was talking to, or like why we would ask a question like that, you know what I mean? And for him, especially after what, like years of like, literally, I mean, this was a platinum artist, like he's been, like he's done it, you know what I'm saying? And the things that he chose to share were things like, you know, like when you do what you love after like being back and forth on different sides of your experiences, the good and the bad, running into different types of people for different reasons, or making choices in that field for different reasons, all that he learned was that you just gotta find the people that you really like support and roll with, and you know that they have your back, and run with them. You know what I mean? And ride with them for what you believe in, and like not worry about everything else. And we're just these contestants on this dance show, 13 Asian Americans strong, just like all right, man, you just told us like we gotta do us. We gotta do what we gotta do. You know, we gotta take our stance. We gotta speak for what we believe in. We gotta own up and represent ourselves. You know what I mean? Like not be ashamed of what our identity is, but rather to like embrace it fully. And we've got to push forward and challenge these things. So even after we had performed, this was also unfortunately cut out, but he had asked us. He was like, you know, because he knew the context, he was like, what is your routine about? Because he wanted us to also be able to get a chance to share what was really behind the movement. And we expressed that, you know what I mean? Like saying this concept of sexy has nothing to do with just like being, you know, sensual or like being physically attractive. It has a lot to do to us, you know what I mean, about being intelligent, expressive, articulate, you know, hardworking, putting things like teamwork and cooperation and idealism in front of like individualism and stuff. So we just have a different perspective. We wanted to show that, especially as Asian Americans in entertainment, that we could be anything we wanted to be, which is why the idea of No Limit and the song of No Limit was so important for us, because like it had the message, it had the connotation for anybody to like have no limits, to not think of any concept of a box that would box you in, and to just be what you needed or wanted to be. So even those blindfolds that everybody, you know, to tell the truth, I don't know if I should tell the truth, but they're not real blindfolds. Like you can see through them. Not fully. I mean, it's hard. Plus the lights in there are like super dim and dark. So yeah, and it was really tough regardless. But that was even also a play on the idea that most people, especially Asians, are characterized by like the stereotypes of our eyes, right? And being super chinky and whatnot. So we thought to ourselves, hey, if we take that away, like how do you see us? You know what I'm saying? Like, are we still just Asian people to you guys, or, you know, are we now people? You know, so that was, it was still, at the end of the day, like we were so thankful to be able to still put that artistry out there, but more important to us was the message. And not in any complaint saying that like, yo, the media is messed up for portraying us like that, but more so as like a reminder to ourselves, like, hey, if, you know, we want more role models in that field to be able to shake stereotypes and represent something that maybe we want as a better example in idealism, then we got to step up to the plate. We can't complain why people aren't like that. Like, can't say like, dang, I wish Bruce Lee was still alive. You know what I'm saying? We gotta fill shoes and do what we can. You know what I mean? For as far as we can.
It's the most important takeaway from the round, to be honest with you. Like, there's so much that went into that round, as I feel like everyone else did. But I think that's the most important for people to know, because it didn't really see the light of day like the way we wanted it to. So that's what our episode 3 was about. Not so much how it went down, but that's what it was about. All right, I'll share one story. I guess. I'll share one story.
I knew it was gonna come out.
It was just the story of us checking ourselves. We straight checked ourselves, right? It was the night before. We had just like became happy with the way we were dancing, and then just the concept of only showing from nose down was kind of scaring us a little bit. It's a whole nother thing. We're so used to this. The minute we go like this, it's like, are we just gonna be like the whole time we're dancing? Or like, you know what I mean? And so we had to like really dig deep, and like we did some performance drills, and we just had to really go far into like just developing our own characters for what we were trying to portray. You know what I'm saying? And
I remember taking it so seriously, because like this I'm cracking. Yo, he had us like partner up with people and you know, like pretty much do facial exercises and perform, and at the end of the day we're playing this sexy ass song
and we're all guys.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And we're just looking at each other and just seriously just being like about what we're about. And it wasn't just about sex. It was like, you know, being confident and also just knowing, like, you know, being aware of like your face. And I remember being partnered up with Charlie. And man, I love Charlie. But you know, like, we're committed, we're in it. It's like, you know, nobody's sleeping. There's a serious moment. We're just like figuring out how to like bite our lip the right way. Is it the left and is it right? And just also pumping each other up like, yo, that was good. Keep it up. Like, give me some more.
That was the best part. The best part, hearing props throughout the room.
Like, let's
Everyone
go.
was making eye contact with each other. I was looking at Villain, and little moments like, woo, let's go.
there was also one funny moment when we do our very last run through, and we have Katie. Katie was one of the handlers on the show. Shout out to Katie.
Love
Katie,
it.
if you see this,
Let's produce.
you already know. And yeah, she gets done, and then she films it, and we get done, and we're just like, "What do you think, Katie?" And she's like, "That was sexy," and we're like, just super confident until like the next day, because we were, to be honest, a little shaky even the night before. Not to the movement. We believed in the movement. We believed in everything. It's just that last minute, like, oh man, like not all of us are, you know what I mean? And
that was a huge affirmation for us, that very moment.
yeah, and we're all different. Like, we're b-boys, we're robots, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have just like a wide range of the way we choose to dance and perform, you know what I mean? And to get everyone honed into the same idea and delivery was a vital moment for us.
That's good.
Yeah.
We're down for each other, man.
Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah.
That was a true bond.
Such sensitive gangsters, bro. So sensitive.
We got closer from that. Like, all of us have moments like making straight eye contact with each other, like straight being sexy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I cut that one out. And that was our round 3, y'all.